She believed she was invisible, just another maid gliding silently down the mansion's never-ending corridors. But on one fateful night, all of that changed. One night, a son stumbled upon a sight he would never be able to erase. His authoritative father, shattered and crying in the arms of a maid. And what happened afterward wasn't merely a family secret. It was a truth buried under generations of silence and guilt. A truth inextricably bound to race, power, and a history no amount of money could erase. The question is, when the mask of wealth slips, what do we see underneath? By day, Elena glided quietly around the mansion, polishing silver that would never grace her table, folding clothes she could never buy, and taking care of rooms she would never be invited into. To the family, she was background, visible but not seen, necessary but not named. But behind her serene smile was a woman bearing tales of sacrifice, migration, and survival. For years she convinced herself that silence was safety, that keeping her head down was how to make it. But change was on its way, quicker than she could have conceived. One night, a single moment of not being guarded would sweep her out of the darkness and into the heart of a secret strong enough to rattle the house she'd worked for all these years. Elena knew where she stood in the house. Keep her head down, walk softly, and take up less space. But the reality was that even in silence, the walls had a voice. She sensed the suppressed glances when visitors came, the way some tightened their pearls when she walked into a room, the way her pigmentation made her less, even when her labor kept the house together. One night, after cleaning the marble floors and about to head home, Elena listened to muffled cries coming from down the corridor. Curious, but fearful, she trailed after the sound and stopped in her tracks. The billionaire, her boss, the man who appeared inaccessible, was huddled in her arms, sobbing uncontrollably like a child. His son had caught them, his shock etched on his face. But what really shook Elena wasn't the crying, it was the implication that followed. Rumors ran fast among the staff and among the family. Why was she with him by herself? The inference was open, tainted by bias. She wasn't viewed as a comforter, a human being bringing compassion. No, by their perception, her mere presence with him became suspicious, nearly scandalous. The following morning she felt the change. People fell silent upon her arrival. Doors that were previously ajar now shut against her. Even the son, who had stared at her with wide-eyed wonder, soon began to behave as if she was dangerous. It didn't matter that she hadn't done anything wrong. In a home constructed on looks and money, a woman like her, poor, brown, and powerless, was an easy target to blame. Soon enough, she was feeling the pressure of being watched. Her actions were monitored, her work questioned. Every day brought new humiliations. Silverware accidentally doubled up after she cleaned it. Rooms searched as if she were a burglar. The mansion that once paid her bills was becoming a prison. Nevertheless, she remained silent. She assured herself it would go away, that truth has a way of seeping through the pores. But in her heart, she knew otherwise. History had shown her that women of her kind did not usually get the advantage of truth. And then there was the moment she broke her silence. She was called to stand before the family, their eyes hard, their voices tinged with accusation. The son was among them, his jaw clenched, his eyes icy. The father, the man who had wept in her arms, had no words. Elena's heart constricted. She understood in that moment this was not about what she had done. This was about who she was. The question lingered in the air, unspoken but burning. Would they destroy her to protect themselves? The room was quiet, but the atmosphere was stifling. Elena stood before them, her hands shaking, not from guilt, but from the suffocating burden of accusation. The eyes of the family cut into her, cold and cutting, as if she were already guilty. She had dedicated years of her life to this home, but in this moment she was as much an outsider as they could possibly make her. The voice of the son shattered the silence. His words weren't a scream, but they sliced deeper. "She doesn't belong here!" Gasp echoed around the room, though no one dared to respond. Elena's throat constricted. She wanted to say something, to protest, but the words stuck in her chest. Because she knew her voice would not be heard. Not here, not by them. Then came the final blow. The father, the same man who had held on to her during his moment of weakness, at last lifted up his head. For one brief second, their eyes locked, his with shame, hers with burning betrayal. But in place of truth, he offered her silence. His lips moved open, and with a mere nod, he sealed her destiny. Her knees almost gave way. It wasn't the accusation, it was the recognition. She was being erased, offered up to save a legacy that never belonged to her. With every look, every whisper, every suspicion, came the verdict. Elena was not losing her job. She was losing her dignity, her humanity, her position in a world that had forever informed her that she did not belong. And in that crushing silence, one thought screamed inside her. If even the truth couldn't save her, what hope was left? Elena departed the mansion that evening with nothing in her hands but everything weighing in her heart. Her years of devotion had been expunged in an instant, her compassion turned to suspicion, her humanness cast aside to maintain an illusion of authority. She departed not as the woman who waited on them, but as the scapegoat they selected to hide their shame. But the burden she bore was greater than her own hurt. What had happened to Elena was not a singular injury, it was part of a pattern. A narrative repeated in millions of homes, offices, and streets. A narrative in which silence insulates privilege, and truth is offered up to prejudice. Her life went on, but the wounds did not heal. Each hushed skepticism, each stolen chance, each locked door reminded her of the night she learned her place. And from that reminder comes the question that echoes long after the doors of that house. How many more must be silenced before we acknowledge that dignity is not something that money may bestow or strip? This isn't Elena's tale alone. It's the tale of millions who exist unseen, unheard, and unguarded. And until we confront it, until we say it aloud, the cycle continues. Therefore I give you this. When the respectability mask falls away and the truth is brought to light, will we stand with the Elenas of the world, or will silence be our voice?